Welcome to I'll Be the Judge,
where opinions are bold, the vendor tea is hot, and the bridesmaids' dresses are questionable.
I'm Chelsea.
And I'm Casey.
We are both wedding photographers who have seen it all.
From first looks to last call meltdowns,
each week we're pulling back the veil
and calling out the trends, traditions, and totally chaotic moments in the wedding world.
Nothing's off limits. If it happens between yes and I do, we are judging it.
So grab a bevy,
fluff your train, and let's get into it. Hi, how are you?
Good. Oh my God, how are you? It's been a minute.
It's been a freaking minute. Are you jet lagged? For everyone that doesn't know, Casey just got back from shooting a wedding in Italy like days ago.
Literally 2 days ago, I got in at 10:30 p.m. And then the day after that, which was yesterday, I was attending the Arizona Bride Gala. And now I'm here. I'm discombobulated, but I'm here.
It's here, you guys. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Casey because she was surprised with an award from the Arizona Bride magazine. She was the editor's pick. What was it, Casey? Most emotional moment? What was it?
Yeah, honestly, something like that. Let me look it up because I'm still like in shock from everything. It came out of nowhere. It's best moment captured.
Best moment.
And it was like
that's like a big deal.
I know. It was very emotional. You can see it on Arizona Bride Awards. Stick it into your Google and it'll pop up. It also made it into the physical print, which is really exciting because I feel like that doesn't really happen these days so much anymore. Yeah, it's a small section in there. And one of my friends, whose name is also Casey, she was there with her husband last night. And she was like, hey, before you go, you should grab a magazine because you might be in it. I was like, I don't think I'm in it. Like, I think I just got the award. Happened to grab a magazine. And then I was showing my parents and they were like, oh, are you in it? And I had literally fanned through it and I was like, no, I wasn't in it. But I was like, I have the certificate and that's all that matters. And then my mom was flipping through and she goes, you're right here. And I was like, oh my God, that's so exciting. It was all very, very shocking, but I am honored. And last night it came out of nowhere and I beelined it across the stage because I was like, what do I do? Thank God there was no speeches that had to be made because
I was just about to ask if you had to give like an Oscar award winning speech.
No, dude, it was like very much so like that as far as like the award ceremony goes, but there was no speeches. There were so many categories, so many talented people. So there would have been no time. It probably would have lasted like 5 hours had everyone needed to give a speech. But no, I just went up, gave everybody a hug, and then I walked across, grabbed my award, took a little picture. They did a little video. It was very cute. It was so much fun. I had a blast. And like to top off my Italy weekend, I'm just like, oh my God, this is so fun. I love this for me.
Can everyone just give you a round of applause for being on a podcast at, what time is it? Like 8:50 in the morning or something crazy for you?
It's almost like 8:58. Yeah.
Wow. That's a lot for that early in the morning. I'm luckily on the Eastern time zone, so it's like noon. So I don't know that I could have gotten my ass up after a gala.
I know. Luckily, I'm up early enough. I had to pace myself last night because I knew that we were recording today. So I did limit myself and I found somebody who was able to like scurry on out of there before it got too late. But I was like, oh my God, I have to be up. I have to be alive, awake, alert, enthusiastic. So if I'm a little off today, I apologize, but I'm giving it my absolute all.
You're perfect. I actually got to see, so it's been a couple of weeks since we've recorded because we had some travel in there and then the holiday. But Casey and I actually got to see each other in person. She photographed a wedding with me like 3 weekends ago now. And so we got to spend the whole weekend together. We went out to dinner and we had fun and she helped me on a huge wedding. And it was a really great weekend seeing her. We considered recording in person. It was gorgeous. We should have recorded in person, but we didn't have time. Unfortunately, the weekend was
there was a lot happening. If I mean anybody in this industry knows that wedding weekends are go go go. So it literally would have had to been recorded at like 3 a.m. and that wasn't going to happen. But that was so much
we
fun.
Probably could have. We could have and should have.
At that stage, nobody wants to see us. Nobody wants to see what we look like. Nobody needs to hear what we have coming out of our mouths. It's all gibberish at that point.
Before we dive into like the actual topic today, give us a quick little synopsis on your Italy wedding. That's so freaking exciting. Italy is gorgeous, but I have to know, was it super hot this time of year?
You know what? So when we flew in, it was a quick trip for me. When I flew in, it was raining, and as I was driving in, I was like letting when it comes to wedding weekends and things like that, I don't talk about the weather if there is rain amongst us. However, it was raining on the drive in, and I was just sort of like reassuring them. I was like, if it's gonna rain, let it pour today. That way, tomorrow and the next day will be sunshine. Fingers crossed. So that was what we manifested, and it was perfect weather. Literally could not have asked for a more perfect day. The sun was shining, the birds were chirping. It was like totally Euro summer vibes. It was perfect, and I'm so happy. It was just a weekend filled with love and sunshine. It was pretty warm during the wedding day, and then the day after was sort of like the chill by the pool, brunch ish time, and it was hot. There was a couple friends that ended up getting burnt that I saw later in the evening, and I was like, whoa. UV5, no, your skin says UV10, and I love that for you.
That's me every time I step foot in the sun for the first time during summer. I turn into a little bit of a lobster, but we get tan. We get there. So
Listen, in
bring
Minnesota,
on
for
the
those who don't
UV8.
know this, yeah, for those who don't know this, I grew up in Minnesota, and there was a saying we had, and it says, we say burn to turn. And although I do not condone burning your skin, if you do get a little crispy, we always say burn to turn. It's going to turn to a nice warm tone. It feels good. Maybe not day one, but day three, you're definitely shining.
Day three. Listen, we grew up in an age of like no sunscreen. Like the kids these days do skincare and they wear sunscreen every day. This is like a new concept to me as I'm in my mid 30s of like skincare. I'm like, oh my God, I have to get Botox now because I didn't do skincare. So let's just say that our kids' generation is going to have fabulous skin in their 30s.
Dude, they're gonna look fresh out of the womb when they're in their 50s. And I'm jealous. I remember, and I listen, my grandma has great skin and she gave me that. And I'm so grateful. But it's crazy. I remember in high school, and like I was chatting with the girls about our skincare routines and things like that. Everybody had these regimens and all these things that they were doing. And they were like, what do you do? And I was like, I don't know, like water on the face type of thing. And they were like, oh girl, you got to fix that. And I was like, okay, I'm on it. But I actually didn't, embarrassingly enough, start skincare probably until I was about, I don't know, I was living in Canada for sure. I feel like 20, maybe like 23, 24, embarrassingly late in life, but better late than
Casey,
never, you know?
I turned 34 in 2 weeks and I started skincare 6 months ago.
Better late than
But
never. And you have a great injector, so I wouldn't be too worried.
shout out Dr. J.
I know when I go back to Canada, I'm fully in my on season, and I go back to Canada in a week and a half, which I will be recording one of the podcasts from there. So hopefully I remember to bring the right equipment for that. But my injector there, I have yet to find somebody in Arizona, because shout out Mina. I just trust nobody else with my face. And when it comes to needles, I do not mess around. So I'm like, it could be worse. It could be worse. I have great skin, and I'm thankful for her, but I can't wait to be. Give me the needles. Give me the
Give me
needles.
the talks. Give me the talks. Okay. Hard
Yes.
left into wedding publications.
Oh my God. I'm so excited to talk about this today, and I'm so excited for our guest. I feel like we've got some juicy things to talk about, some hot
We do
takes.
have some juicy things to talk about. So I probably shouldn't say this, but I'm going to anyways. Like 6 months ago, I was like, publications are dead to me. I was like, I'm so done with them. They feel like this really confusing who's who place to navigate. You don't quite know what they're looking for. So it's hard to like hit a goal if you don't really even know where the goalpost is at. Some things would get picked up and other things wouldn't. So I think publications are really shrouded in mystery, which I get. Like that's part of the allure, right? That's kind of part of what makes them fun to, I guess, attempt to get your work in. But they've changed a lot. And specifically over the last 2 to 3 years, I've seen a crazy shift in publications. I mean, we used to have, you mentioned kind of at the beginning, Casey, that Arizona Bride is still in print, which is really exciting to sit there and physically hold a copy of what your work looks like. And when I
Right.
first started in
Yeah.
2016, yeah, and when I started in late 2016, early 2017, there was actually quite a bit of print left. I mean, Martha's Stewart was down to, I think, one issue a year, if memory serves me, but we still had, quite a bit of print left. And that's really just kind of trickled out over the last couple of years. And then even with going to digital online only, we're looking at controversial things like pay to play, what's authentic versus not authentic, publications taking 18 months to get back to you about a wedding. So I think that it's going to be fun to kind of dive into all of that. I'll just go ahead and introduce Sarah. She's going to be popping on with us shortly, but I think it's important to kind of give some of her background, and her
Yeah.
why she's so credible to talk about this. From the glossy pages of Martha Stewart Weddings to Brides Magazine, Sarah Schreiber has been the secret sauce behind some of the industry's most iconic real wedding stories. With a sharp editorial eye and a front row seat to the evolution of wedding publications, she's seen it all, from cathedral veils and custom calligraphy to TikTok trends and digital first features. Today, she's going to be pulling back the velvet curtain to talk about publications and how they've changed over the years, what editors are actually looking for, and how to stand out in a sea of submissions. Let's welcome Sarah Schreiber to the podcast.
Hello.
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Yay, Sarah, we're so happy to have you.
Thanks for having me on the pod, guys. Love a pod.
Listen, we are excited about this new journey. We are, you know what? You're our second guest, and we're learning as we go. But we're super stoked to dive in. Right before you popped on, we were talking about publications and the shroud of mystery
Hmm.
that surrounds them. And I was
Totally.
like, you know what? Let's kind of pull back the veil here. So let's chat about it. I guess our first question for you. So give everyone a little bit of a life update. I gave your bio before you entered, but tell us all kind of where you're at now and what you're doing.
Yeah. So after nearly a decade in digital editorial, most of which was spent in the wedding industry and the wedding space on brands like Martha Stewart Weddings and Brides, I am now a brand consultant for luxury event professionals, doing all fabulous things. So this is photographers, planners, but I'm really open to working with any vendor who's hoping to up level, kind of maximize their branding to get where they want to be, get the clients they want, and make the money that they want. And I leverage my editorial background to kind of help everybody do that through photo curation, copywriting, and just general brand consulting. So that's the little elevator pitch as to what I'm doing. It's been really wonderful. I mean, transparently, I was laid off from editorial in January on January 16th, and I think by like February 1st, I had an LLC. And that is really, that was a choice I think that I made, honestly. And we are taking some time now to kind of like process all the things. But it was a really, really awesome jump, and one that I didn't really know that I would ever make. But I was extremely supported by this community in general. And I don't think I ever would have made that jump without the support. So I'm grateful to be here, and I'm grateful to be part of this world for sure.
Oh, well, we're happy for you. I obviously know it was very not happy to be laid off. Like I lost my job as a teacher. We went through cuts, and I was 8 months pregnant with my daughter at the time, and I had just been doing photography for 2 years, and I was like, well, let's
Here
just
we
give this the
go.
old college try. And I
It's a
haven't looked.
forced change. Yeah. I mean, so many people in this industry, I think, have stories like ours, which is also really, it's not great. I don't want that for anybody, but it's also really helpful.
100%. And I feel like that was such a natural, at least from the outside looking in. You are one of the most approachable, warm, welcoming people that I've ever met in the industry. I think that you were right. You were right in front of me during gifting for New Orleans Engage. And I was like, obviously, when you're around all these amazing people, you're intimidated and excited and nervous and all of these things at the same time. But you were so welcoming and so warm. And I think that you exude that, and I'm so excited for you in this next journey. I
As the
really am.
first timer listening to you speak, I can attest to everything I mean, just the way that you speak, I'm so excited to hear what you have to say today. Just listening to your background, I'm so intrigued about what you have to say about this specific topic. And yeah, I'm really excited. I wanna jump into our questions.
Let's do it. Sarah, I think let's start with publications have changed a lot in the last couple of years, like drastically. Here's a spectrum, they've changed. Where do you feel like publications started versus where they're at now versus where they're going, which I know is a loaded question, but I'm so curious.
Yeah, I mean, I have, been really fortunate, I would say, to see the gamut of editorial and to watch it unfold. It started pretty print heavy, book heavy, as we call it in the industry. And, I watched that reduction in a lot of ways. I watched the emergence of digital. I actually never worked a print role in my life. So when I graduated college, it was, I don't know, oh my God, I'm going to date myself here, 2016. I launched right into digital editorial. And that was like at the time, I was told like, that's the smart way to be, like print is dying. And this is where, like, this is where the money will be. This is where the growth will be. And in a lot of ways, that was true. I watched kind of these incredible magazines just kind of buckle under, money and budget. They're really expensive to produce, slipping over into digital, which is less expensive to produce, and easier to drive traffic, and you reach masses faster without this massive production line behind it. So I watched the kind of dissolution of print and the evolution of digital, and then I kind of watched this dawn of social first, right, or social predominant and social media. And that has changed things for publications, right? Whereas you used to kind of create something and then push it out into the world and then wait a little bit. I speak to people all the time who miss the nostalgia of print media in general, who say, like, I just, we would do something and then we would wait 4 months and then Martha would come out and then that would tell us what we needed to go and what we needed to do for the next, 4, 8, 12 months. Versus now it's lightning speed. So we went from this, like, it's not a snail pace. It was just, I think we went from like really a lot of intentionality and a lot of creativity. I think print editors working like 5, 10 years ago were like creme de la creme personally. And I kind of hate that those roles have changed. I will never say that, print media was, like dead and dying and like that's just how it works. Like I mourn that, honestly. I think there was something there that we've lost. But digital's faster. And now social is the fastest. So I've really kind of seen where it's been and where it is, and I mean where it's going. Listen, I always say, media especially is a pendulum. Like we started in one place. I have no doubt in my mind that we will revert back, or that the reemergence of long form. I honestly think Substack is the future. Personally, that's where I think the future of editorial might be. More long
For
form,
those who
but
don't know, would
newsletter.
you be able to describe a little bit of what Substack is?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, picture a newsletter, like a newsletter that you would subscribe to back in the day via email. It would be like a listserv that gets sent to you. Think like the days of MailChimp. And now it's more of like, that's just kind of the format. The format is newsletter style. It's long blog style. So again, kind of going back to these older digital format too. Like we all remember like the 2010s, the rise of the blogger, which eventually gave way to the influencer. I think in a lot of ways, like digital media is going to give rise to the Substack, and the
Yes.
Substack
You
brands,
heard it
that come
here
out of it.
first.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's yes, that's listen, I could be wrong. I am wrong constantly. But I think that is gonna come back. I think we want that. We want the longer form. We want the details. Because we've lost that in a lot of ways through social and reels and things that happen fast. So I think we're gonna take a step back and embrace the process a little bit. And I think Substack allows us to do that.
I I actually really love that because I even feel throttled telling my stories in 10 photos. Like, how do I mean, you can tell a story in 10 photos, but I'm craving a space to be able to share that story with more breadth and more substance to it, as opposed to just content being thrown in your face and you're not even really sure where it's rooted, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think things are
Completely agree.
shifting faster maybe than they ever have, you know, like there's like we're really iterating, like trends are coming and going and dying faster than like sometimes I'm like, whoa, that's new, that's different. Where are we? Okay, we're here now. Okay, cool. All right, we got to change. So, and that's where, you know, I think the reactivity is lacking in traditional editorial, traditional publication, where people don't, you know, I mean, I know that we're going to get into it, but I don't think people realize, you know, what it really takes to produce a magazine or what it really takes to put together a feature, a digital package. It's a lot of work. And there's not a lot of staff working on these things. And I just think, you know, since things are moving so fast from our perspective and what's happening in the real world and what you folks are working on, I think it's really just become like it's hard to keep up with it all. So that's why I think these new formats that are, you know, a Substack is maintained probably by one person. Sure, it can be by a brand, but I think we're reverting back to that too. People still want to hear from a person.
Yeah.
I think brands in general are losing their luster. And I think like Substack kind of meets that medium too, where you could be one person kind of doing all of this here, and it's still personal and still coming from your voice, but it's also speaking to the masses too. So I just think we're going to find this unique balance of mass and personal moving forward in media too, because I just think like that's how you keep up. You have to keep up or you're dead in the water. You know, that's sometimes how it feels.
You do,
Totally.
you do. We've been talking a lot about photography styles changing, and people are frustrated with that. Some people are. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I felt that way too, but think about the people that did not change and that were in the early 2000s, that very iconic early 2000s style. Some of them didn't change and they got left behind. And so I think that just being aware of the change, being on top of the change, but when it changes, what you're saying, Sarah, is it's changing so fast. How do we keep up? And I think that that begs the question of, how do we do that, and how do we, keep the integrity of the work that we're producing? Um, but I think a big question I have: publications were so big and so important for so long. Do you feel like they still carry the same weight as they once did?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem here, honestly, it's a hard question to answer because there are so few left, right? And I think you have to do some, you know, reading of the writing on the walls with that, you know, like there's not a lot. It's hard to say exactly. It's hard to put into words. But when we lose things, right? When we lost Martha Print, when we lost, honestly, largely Martha Weddings beyond whatever is happening on social, you know, we've lost things. And I think it's hard to say that they hold the same level of importance when they've been, they haven't been maintained or things are just not the way that they were. They don't have the same cadence that they did. There isn't this hype around, you know, I'm waiting to hear back from this brand and this brand. We're really down to two brands on the national level, right? That's where we're at. And I think that becomes, two to three brands really, if you kind of want to open it up a bit. Um, and that really does beg the question, if there are two to three shots that you have on the national level, is this really where you're going to invest your time? Or do you need these marketing materials to book clients now? Do you need to be iterating with the times now? Do you need to be up leveling, making sure that you're speaking to this new generation of client? We also have to remember that that's happening too, right? It isn't just everything else that's changing. The millennial client is gone and the rise of the Gen Z is here. What do they need? Where are they getting their information about weddings from? So I think like all of these questions are important when you're thinking about the context of relevance. I would say, I will never get on here and say that I don't think publications don't have a place. I think they do. I think publications need more money. I think publications need more people. You guys, I mean, like, I see the other side of it, and I see a lot of frustration in this space. And I always like to start these conversations by saying, like, in a lot of ways, this is PR, not the ER. And I get it. It's a hot topic. It's a hot topic
That's a good
conversation.
one.
It's a good
That
one,
was
though. I
really
mean,
good.
we need
That
to
was
take
really
it
That was
good.
good.
down a
Let's talk
bit.
about it.
Like, nobody's dying. Like, Kim, people are dying. Like, it's that kind of thing, right? Where, we're fortunate to be on this level having this conversation. Um, but, there are real people that are good people working on these brands who don't deserve, I think, a lot of the fire that I see, because they are truly doing the very best with what they have. And that is the reality. And I know that I've been a small business owner for 5 minutes, and I know that things are going to come my way that will be challenging, but I don't think people understand how high stress, how how much work, how many hours goes into keeping something alive when you do not have a lot of resources. Um, and feeling the weight of an industry on your back while you do it. So I always like to kind of expectation set from the context of these are real people that you're mad at. They are mad at it too, most likely. And they wish things were different as well. And there are certain things failing that are preventing things from moving forward in the way that they should. And that's really not, to anybody's fault, but this digital evolution, this train that we are on that we would all like to get off of, but we cannot. So I always like to start there because it's a hot topic and, it is what it is. But I mean, I think, as we move forward, as we think about relevance, it's important to be like, what do I need right now for me? Like, is getting published at in X or Y going to move my business forward? Right? Is this going to really, really help me attract who I want? Or do I need to leverage these marketing materials now? If the answer is yes, the brand is going to help me leverage, then you have made that deal and you are going to wait the 6 to 12 months for the feature and you're not going to be upset about it. Like, you need to just accept that,
Right.
or you choose a different path because those are our options right now. So I like to opt out of relevance and say, you need to do what is right for you. And that is different for your brand and by brand across the industry too. So, that's my 2 cents on that one.
Well, I think that that's really smart. And I think it's something that maybe hasn't been discussed. It feels very shrouded in mystery. And I think that that's probably part of the frustration is like, when you don't understand how something operates and you don't understand the core of how it operates, you're just seeing the end product or you're seeing what you're not getting, what someone else is getting. I think it can cause, especially when you don't have control over that. You second guess yourself, you pour everything you can into this business. And without that perspective, it's really hard to kind of take a deep look at what those publications are actually doing. But also, you mentioned things are changing, but this is how we're getting our trends. This is how we are typically in national publications. Like you said, you wait for the print. Okay, what are we doing? What is the mass market going to be influenced by? Because influencer culture is not brand new. The concept of influencer culture has just been channeled in different ways over the years. So I think that it's smart to be at least aware of what's happening. And then also, like you, I love that was actually going to be, something else I wanted to talk about was how do you know what is right for your business when it comes to self-publishing, which is usually what I have no chill. When I shoot an awesome wedding, I'm like, and I blast it to the world. Like I have absolutely no chill with
I'm the
with
same way.
sharing things. I'm like, no, this is too good. It's too good. It's gotta go.
I hear you. I really do. I mean, I don't think I played by the rules for my own wedding, and I can say that now. But I don't think I kept anything under wraps, and I was the one enforcing it. So like, I get it. Yeah, I mean, I think, like, okay, to your point of like, where are people getting these ideas from, if not like on the national like publication level, like if they're not the trendsetters, who is? I would argue, you guys, that you guys all along have been the trendsetters, and there is a level of reactivity that publications have been doing, especially as of late. And that's what I kind of mean, like, as we kind of moved from print to digital, right? I'm not saying that trends aren't happening because, you know, that this is just what people are seeing, right? But who's doing the work? Like who's doing the work itself? I think like, and that's why I do believe in self-publish, and that's why I believe in a really great social media manager and having people who can help you kind of market that way to get it out and kind of publish it yourself in a meaningful way. Um, so I mean, I think, you guys are the creative ones, right? There's some incredible design happening out there. I have seen photographers do so many incredible things. And sure, something latches on. We start seeing how, an editor will call something or they focus on these images, but like those images are there in your skill set all along. So I like to say, like taking a look at your body of work, and identifying these things that kind of fit into this like modern day language, this visual language, and kind of moving from there. And I think like it's an impetus to just kind of get creative and do the things that you are actually really good at, instead of waiting to be told by somebody else. I mean, I've seen some like really awesome things that like recently where, I think Super 8 is back and like completely different than it was even when I had it at my wedding. Like I'm just seeing it used in all these incredible unique ways. Like, the kids are going towards like moving save the dates and like these like
I,
motion
s-
moments.
I
They're
saw
putting
that.
everything in motion. And
Yep.
I think like, we have to start anticipating these things ourselves. Like if they want moving media, if they want Super 8, like what's next? Like you guys, I don't know, you tell me. Like you're the ones with the cameras in their hand. I want to hear from the videographers. So I feel like we can get a general taste or a general flavor from the work that's happening now, on the national level, but also like we need to look at the tools in our own toolkit, in our own toolboxes, and pick up the things that we've this is what we do, and then we go from there. And again, with like a really great social media manager, with a great brand consultant, I really think like
Sarah,
you
are
can
you
kind of
doing
carve your own
social
way.
media management?
No, but I am in the process of really
You really
finding
should.
the good ones.
Okay.
Social media management is just not for me. I am someone
Me
who
neither.
like it's not my jam. But I am in the process of like kind of vetting some really, really great ones that I can start recommending to clients that I feel really, really comfy that are doing a really good work of brand building, but like metric, analysis, because I think that's important too. Um, and who can kind of like deliver things in a good way. So I mean, I think like all of these are really important people to have. It's kind of a new wave
Well,
of
and also
support.
look at other types of businesses that are not maybe solopreneurs. They have budgets for social, for marketing, for all of these other things. And I think sometimes in the artistic solopreneur category, it's that's easy to miss and that's easy to not prioritize in your spending and in your budgets. I will take ownership of that. I would love a social media manager, but in my head, I'm like, well, is the payoff going to be there? Is that where my marketing dollars need to go? I think that from what I've seen from people who have skyrocketed the last couple of years, who have used amazing social media managers, the proof is in the pudding. So I love that you're compiling that list. I will need that list because I
Yeah,
would
you got it, my
love a social
gals.
media
We'll
I
person.
pass
will
along.
too. I
Yeah,
was going to say, I
yeah.
come from the other end of the spectrum of potentially not having so much success with that. I think it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, right when I feel like, I don't know, I feel like social media managers were just starting to become it. Like there wasn't
Mhm.
anybody well established. I feel like it was a couple years ago, the same way that content creators are like starting to make their way into the industry now. And mind you, I am a millennial to the core. My patience runs so dry. I'm working on it. But when I was working with this girl, she was amazing. She was great. She was doing the analytics. She was doing all the things. The one thing that she told me was, you have to give it time. And I'm like, oh, I don't have that. And she was like, it's not going to happen overnight. Like I have to like analyze your crowd, your audience, your demographic, also take what you want and make sure that I'm marketing it in a way that is going towards those, meshing the two worlds together so that it does, happen that way. And I think I only had her on for maybe like, oh gosh, it wasn't a long period of time, but I was like, this just isn't working for me. And I do feel like had I given it a couple more months, it probably would have started to take off a little bit more. But I'm also again, to my core, a control freak. I need everything. And I'm sure that there are awesome social media managers out there who are totally like, we'll get this approved by you. But at that point, I was struggling so hard with, outsourcing that particular thing in my life so that I could focus on other areas, but also still having major control over it. And it was a balance that I hadn't quite figured out yet. So I started to let that panic sort of set in. And I was like, you know what? This is not where my money should be going. I'm going to start to do, I think I ended up doing Facebook ads, which is also another world that I do not know. I don't know if that even worked out for me at that time, but lessons learned along the way. Humble beginnings is what I always like to say, even though this is my 13th. I just feel like it's you really have to spend time with your business, with your brand, like taking everything that Sarah has to say today. And like, it's not just something that you can think about and like be like, okay, easy. It's not that easy. Nothing is overnight. You have to really figure out. You were saying, the trends are coming and going so quickly. Same with the algorithm. All I could think of when you were saying with all that stuff was the algorithm. You learn it, you got it for one day, and then it changes. And you're like, oh my God, like I just figured this out yesterday, and now I've got to figure out a whole new set of rules for it. So I think that it's just an interesting take on the social media managers and what they do and finding good ones. So I will also love to grab that list from you because I feel like it's something that is, eventually does need to be outsourced if that's not your strong suit in your business. And, just deciding if that's something that's worth it for you.
And I think really, really good ones understand that it's not really about like chasing these social strat trends. It's really about leveraging social to brand build because that is your active portfolio, right? Like what you are putting out on social, whether it's Instagram, whether it's TikTok, like whoever you're being on these platforms, whatever you're posting on these platforms, it's all kind of painting this picture. And this is where I like people that are like a little bit more brand focused when it comes to social media management, because they treat it like this is your portfolio, right? So it comes down to like the right images and the right moments and meeting this client, where they're at instead of just like posting everything, like you shouldn't, like you aren't beholden to a couple after the wedding happens. You don't have to post them. If you took some amazing black and white portraits, like that can be the take. If you took some awesome motion blur during the reception, like that can be the call. It can be that simple. I think people get in their heads with social too, and they get really close to their work and to the relationships that they have with their
Guilty.
couples. And they're like, well, I have to do this and I have to do that. And I'm like, you actually have to do nothing. Have is, as I'm learning in therapy, you have to do not. That is a banned word. Okay. Like we don't
This
have
is
to
PR,
do
not the
anything. My
ER.
therapist would be proud.
PR,
Correct.
not PR.
Correct. And they've paid you, right? You have had services rendered. Like it's done. And I think people get lost in that too. Like, well, I need to show them and I need to do like, I'm like, no. And you can also go back and mine old work that you were really, really proud of and repackage it and represent it in these really cool ways. So I feel like those are the best types of social media managers who kind of understand that, and understand the idea of this like living, breathing portfolio that social has become, because like that's what it is. It is your first line. It is like and oftentimes it can be a barrier to entry. And like the only thing that really matters about your social media is if people are going to your website and inquiring to hire you. That is the only thing that matters in addition to brand building. So if your social isn't functioning that way, then like kind of got like a little bit of a problem. And that's where I think hiring the right people comes in. And that's not for everybody either. There are people that are like, this is socials for me. And then there are people who are like, I'm an NDA person. Like I'm quiet, I'm chill, I don't need to do anything, and I'm just gonna get the work. But like that's not most of us, right? So
No, I
it just
have
depends.
seen that be very successful, but what people don't understand, like there's a pipeline there. Those inquiries are
Yeah,
coming from somewhere. Those aren't coming
somewhere.
from thin air because you look cool and are mysterious. Those are directly being fed to you. So I do think that that's the exception, not the rule. And it's so funny that you're mentioning how important socials are because for whatever, maybe this is my millennial brain. My brain was my website. My website took all of my energy and my time in making sure it was so perfect and curated and so on brand for Chelsea. And I had like a breakdown. This was like 3 months ago. And I was like, something is wrong. Like something is not like, I am really careful about my brand. I'm very, very strategic about my brand. And I had a good friend. I'm like, hey, can you just take a look at my stuff and tell me if there's a break in pattern? Like there has to be a break in pattern somewhere. For some reason, at some point there was a bottleneck and I wasn't getting as many of them as I used to.
Mm-hmm.
And she sat me down and she was like, there is a huge disconnect between your website and you showing your personality, and your Instagram is like
Yep.
drier than the Sahara Desert.
Correct. Ding, ding, ding. This is like literally the problem for so many of my clients. I'm like, there's, or it's the other way around. And I'm like, like what they see on social and they get to your website and they're like, who is this person?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yep.
it's both ways. Yeah.
Social
Yeah.
is becoming, and I loved this. I was targeted for an ad. I think it was like Gen Z learning about them. People are doing studies on them and how, because brands have to like, this is who we're marketing to right now. And it says something like Gen Z doesn't just want email. They want to connect with you how it's easiest for them, whether that's a DM, a text message. It's probably not a phone call, but one of these two things that might not be an inquiry form through your email. And that was kind of like a moment for me where I was like, okay, let me just try meeting them where they're at. Social media, I think, Sarah, what you're saying is also a very clear form of publishing your work.
100%, and getting clients and communicating with them. And it's become this kind of like one shop, like one stop shop for all of these things. So, it's important, it is truly important to kind of be on there, to be active, to make sure, to your point, Chelsea, that it's reflecting the work that you're doing, who you are, that your site also speaks to it. So a lot of the times I reverse engineer that, right? That's where I come in and I say, okay, like you're doing, this is amazing what you're posting on social. Why do you have, what is this? Like, what is this website with images from 2014? Like it just doesn't, there is a disconnect. So people notice that too. Like the word is vibes. Okay. The word is vibes. The Gen Z cares about vibes. They care about who you are. They care about the vibe of your social and the vibe of your website. And people are like, Sarah, what does that mean? I'm like, you gotta curate for the vibes, guys. Like there is something happening. And people are like, well, that's how does, like, what's the technicality? I'm like, it's not that deep. Like it is, but like you either are versed in this language or you're not. Like you either understand or you don't. And if you don't understand, you need to hire people to help you understand, or else you're gonna get lost. You're gonna get left behind. And we don't want that because you're doing incredible work. Like this is your livelihood. Of course not. So I feel like you either kind of, some of this is like a little bit of a je ne sais quoi. I think like you either have it or you don't, but it can be taught and it can be recognized. And I think that's really, really exciting. And I think there's like a lot of willingness to iterate and change and pivot in this industry. And I think that's really awesome to see too. People are like, I want to figure this out. And I'm like, okay, you will figure it out. We will make sure that you do.
100%. And I've gone through that shift. Casey, I feel like you and I have both gone through that shift of how things were done, how you were hired, how you executed a job, how you shared that job. That flow chart, so to speak, has completely changed. And we got to catch up to it. And I love that we're bringing light to this. I heard someone say the other day, it's kind of along the same lines of as vibes, but have a damn perspective. Like people want someone that has it's not good enough to be good enough anymore. People want a perspective. They want your perspective or someone else's, but they want a perspective.
Yeah, I really believe that. I mean, there's like the blending of the personal and the professional is here. We had conversations years ago about no, you need a personal Instagram account and you need a professional Instagram account, and your lives need to be separate. And now I'm like, you got to show up here a little bit, or you don't have to show up here, but what you believe does. And you can do that in a lot of different ways, right? Like you can share other people's work. You can do like, I mean, I always think about like what Augusta Cole does is her, curation boards. And that tells you a lot about who she is and what she likes. And I think like there's a lot of creative ways to do it beyond like nobody's like has to show up and be like, hi, like this is my face. And this is like my point of view on X, Y, and Z. You can kind of you can share, you can show where you want to go, and who you want to get. And I think that's really exciting too. There's a lot of different possibilities based on who you are and what your brand is beyond like pulling up a camera and like talking to it, which I think is cool.
It's funny because my personality is very bold in person. Like I don't tend to hold a lot back. I am who I am. And I have, so that I used to also be a middle school teacher. So me in person in my personal life, I was one way. And from the time I was young, it's been ingrained in me. You do not show this to the world on the internet. And I've done that and I've done that. I've done that. And I'm like, well, now's my time to shine. And maybe this is the talk I needed just to get out there more and show more
I mean,
about
you're fun.
me.
You should. You should. I think like the challenge is when you're not like when you're not like super comfy or like when you're more of a reserved person, then it's where like this is not the avenue. You know, like this is we should never be inauthentic or inauthentically showing up online. It should always be like this is truly an extension of my life, and your social presence and honestly your brand should be a reflection of that too. Otherwise you just get like, or we talk about disparities between site and social, then you have disparity between like person and brand, and that is not good. That
No,
really
that's
isn't
even
any good.
sometimes worse.
That's worse. Yeah, that's
It's a little bit
infinitely worse.
misrepresentation.
Yeah, so yeah.
Completely agree with all of this. I do want to take a little bit of a hard left just because
Yeah,
we had
let's
a
go,
lot
let's
of
go.
questions submitted about this. Things are changing, but people still want to know. People still want to know, is there a secret sauce for what people are looking for? National publications, national editors. Is there a secret sauce for what you guys are looking for? If so, give the people what they want to hear.
There I think this is like the hardest thing to say. There isn't. There really isn't a secret sauce. There isn't this one size fits all formula. I mean, I have rejected absolutely beautiful weddings that were incredible because of, like we just had a venue, like we just had this venue show up in the lineup and it just wasn't the right time for this and we just have to move on, right? Like so I think sometimes it's easier to talk about like why things get rejected almost than it is to say like this is like what people are looking for. You don't know what's on an editorial calendar. You don't know, if it's honestly, you don't know if they're looking at a very similar event at a very similar place. You don't know if they just ran 4 Italy weddings and the editor's tired. That was me. I was tired of Italy. That I'll say it. I was so
And
tired of Italy.
California. California was
Yeah.
always featured.
California. Yeah. I mean, California was like this kind of like hot spot, sweet spot because it was, all year. You could have like, 4 seasons of outdoor events. I mean, I would say that, outdoor events tend to have a little bit of a better shot. I mean, that's just kind of looking, speaking personally as to what, I think attracted me or like attracts the eye, what people look for. There's a lot of al fresco today. Like people aren't really like covetous of a ballroom most of the time, which I would, argue is a mistake because I've seen some incredible ballroom and indoor transformations and it extends our season and there are oftentimes benefits to having those types of events, whatever. But yeah, I mean, like really the brass tacks here is that no, there isn't a secret sauce. I mean, I will say I think there are it's important though to kind of recognize that the event that you are working on, shooting, planning, creating, designing, whatever, it's one in a million, right? Like there is a lot of things happening. And I think it's really important to make sure the event has a point of view and that, how you are packaging it for a submission, how you are culling it for a submission, that also has a point of view, right? Like if the wedding really looks like every other wedding, like we all have to become a little bit more self-aware, I think. It's great. They're great. You're great, but it's just great. Like what's different? What is new? What is exciting here? And I think people are like, okay, I get it. I get it. I'm like, you don't. I don't think you get it. Because you would send the same thing a million times, right? I think also another component here is really diversity. I mean, I think like I don't think many brands are doing this well. I think one brand really is, and I worked for it. And I think that is something that should be considered too. Like when we are working with, I mean, I really, would hope that a goal of everybody in the industry would be to kind of, to make sure that they're working with all cultures and creeds. I think that does, wonders for, you as a person and your portfolio. And I think it opens up client pool to you too. I would say like publishing diversity is really, really important. And I think that there are publications that want that want to see more representation on their pages. And I think those are publications that are, that are worthy of supporting. So I would push events when they fall into that category through and forward. I think that's important. I think I think there are some brands that are more, that are doing that a little bit better than others, that prioritize that a little bit better than others do. So I would always say, like definitely submit those. I think that's really, really important to do. Representation really, really matters. And otherwise it's like, what is this? Like, is this a different format? Is this a couple getting married in a different way? Or is this a really perfectly pretty wedding, and is it best suited on a different level of publication? That is fine. Okay. We need to stop with this, like, well, like it's not going to make it here. I'm like, well, then submit it somewhere else. Maybe, if it's a beautiful garden wedding, how many beautiful garden weddings, can somebody realistically run? So I feel like, we need to get a little bit more strategic about where we're placing things, and doing that requires you to be a little bit more self-aware of what this event is realistically. When there is a really killer design detail, an awesome food display, what is the brand covering outside of their real weddings content? Nobody reads it. Like, they just want to be published in the brand.
Sarah,
What are they
you
covering?
had yeah, you had
Love
mentioned
that.
just on top of all of this, you had mentioned previously, and I was going to bring this up, but this is like the perfect time now, of curating
Yeah.
images. You said earlier, if the ceremony isn't great, like you don't need to highlight that. That's not something that needs to be shown. And I think as well, I completely agree. And Chelsea actually helps me a lot over the past like 7 months. She has really helped me like tune into like what my brand is, what all those things. So I'm learning this as well. However, I was going to say, as far as, beautiful details versus the actual story and picking out pieces as far as what is going to be shown, once you I think you need to keep in mind, obviously when you get the design deck and things like that, and if your couple has an idea of where they want to submit or the planner does, it's so important. Step number one, figure out where the hell you want to submit. Because if you have a dark and moody this or that
Perspective.
style, there are certain publications that don't love that. They only publish bright, light, airy things. It's not going to
Yep.
go well. You're going to get rejected. Stop wasting your time, sort of thing. But as far as sort of curation and things like that go, I want to know from your opinion how important a story actually is behind like the couple's location, like their background, how they met, all the stuff that goes into that, versus like the design aspect itself. Because you were just starting to talk on that. So I wanted to just, with all of the things you had said about curating and picking specific imagery, what actually matters?
And I think this is also kind of dependent on where you're submitting. But I would say, first and foremost, no, you don't have to show anything that's like kind of terrible. If the favors looked bad, don't show the favors. That's not a groundbreaker. If the flat lay didn't come out the way you wanted it to, don't show the flat lay. I think there have been lots of conversations about flat lays in general online right now that are like, do we even need it? And like, I think Nancy Narking just did it. And a lot of editors were like, it's nice to have, but it's not going to prevent you from getting featured, or yes or no. Right. So you can be selective with certain things. In terms of, and that's where a good call comes in. That's where kind of being able to see the whole playing field is important too. In terms of, story and how important that is, I think the photos are the driver. You also have to remember, and I tell my clients this too, like, an editor is not going to spend a lot of time. Okay. Like, we have to stop with this. If this is an email submission, um, like, you don't have to write the next great American novel to an editor. I never, honestly, transparently, I didn't get into it that much. If there was a detail that I really liked in the photos, and I was like, oh, I wonder if this is like this is a different thing. Like, I wonder if this is connected to anything. Then I might go in and read a little bit about, like, their backgrounds or how they met. Is anybody really doing reflective details of how somebody met or a story in a really great way? Okay, like, seriously, everybody thinks their ideas are like, but are they? And this is what I mean, right? Like, it's kind of being self-aware of like, okay, so they like their dog, and the dog is the cocktail is named for the dog. I'm like, okay, like, what else? So I feel like there's a level of, and I don't mean to be mean about it, but like it's not new. So like
No,
don't
no.
don't think that it is. Like that's not the pull, right? Like what a better hook is, and I like, let's say a publication just ran a trend story about getting married at night. Okay, like read the website, read the content that they are pushing out outside of real weddings. Do you have a wedding that fits a trend, that fits content that they are interested in? And be like, hey, oh my God, I just saw the story that you just pushed on this, getting married after dark. And I think this is a new thing. I have a wedding actually, like it's never been under wraps. Um, and I think it really speaks to like a trend that you're, talking about online, and like, there you go. Like that's the more compelling thing, right? Like finding hooks outside of like, this is pretty,
Also,
hooks and rooted in real things.
think about any other industry. You still have to fight for your stuff to be seen. It doesn't matter what industry it is. You have to hook someone, you have to sell someone, and you have to get them to buy in. And I think sometimes, myself included, I'll put myself in that bucket, kind of feel like they're owed something because we did a great job. Well, I did a great job, so I am owed this space in the world. That doesn't exactly, it unfortunately does not happen like that, which is where, self-publishing and social media managers, you can push your stuff out the way you want to, but no one else necessarily owes that to you.
Completely agree. And it's, again, it's self-awareness. It's just recognizing what you have in front of you. It's being aware of the outlet that you want to submit to, and I think, are you engaging with them? Are you like on their radar at all? Are you working on building relationships with people, with editors, with brands? Like, are you being salty on the internet? Like
Red.
how seriously, like I really believe in, like, I do audits now too, and I'm like, what are you saying on threads? Because a brand gets tagged, something happens, like, you just don't, you have to, like, I think we've lost a little bit of the plot in terms of like our own social monitoring too. Like we need to be aware, like if this is a goal for you, like stop shooting yourself in the foot. So I think like it's just being aware of what you're saying online, being, aware of what these publications actually want. People are like, it's so mysterious. I'm like, yeah, but they actually have a recent, you go onto any website and you can see what they're covering and what they're working on, and, follow the editors, engage with the editors, meet, like try to figure that relationship out. I know some are more approachable than others, and you're like, sorry, I can't reach anybody. So like, what's the point? But I mean, I think like,
I'm still willing to give it a try. Look,
yeah,
I
but
will
like
do anything I can to put myself in the right place at the right time.
comment on, and you maybe like don't like stalk an editor and start commenting on every single one of their stories, but comment on the brand's work, like engage meaningfully, like show up. And I feel like otherwise it's like people are like, well, I don't understand. I'm like, well, you're not doing anything. So maybe you could start with something, you know? Um, and I think that's like, it's small, but it, I have made great relationships because I've seen really wonderful people, comment and be positive online and like really support a brand and like step up. And I think, that goes far. It goes far to be kind. that's that's another thing, like it goes far to kind of be a supporter and not a hater.
I think we'll leave it there for today. Is be kind, follow Sarah's advice, hire her because she's amazing. She's a badass. She has so many thoughts and ideas. And I also feel like you're so credible because you have seen so many galleries and seen so many
Everything.
people's work. And you've seen everything
Thousands.
from like A to Z. Like you have like a magical little, like a little background. And I think people need to definitely hop on that before you get too booked up. But ladies, my kindergartner is graduating today, so I have to go to her graduation. But Casey and I thank you so much, Sarah, for coming on today, talking about all of this, because this is like the one thing people
You're
really want to hear
amazing
more about.
in every capacity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she
I'm
is.
here
Thank
for
you
you.
for
I'm
sharing
happy
the
to chat
cold, hard
more.
truth that like some people may have been needing to hear.
Yep. We love a
Here for you
cold hard
guys.
truth.
Love it. We need it. We all need it from
We
time to
need
time.
it. We need a little bit of tough
I think you
love.
said it best. Yeah, I think you said it best. I think self-aware is a politically correct term. It's not too harsh. It's just straight and to the point, sweet,
ER, not
short, to the
ER.
point. This is PR, not the ER. I love that. I think you are so well spoken, and yeah, just can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing your insights. Hopefully, we'll link everything on socials for people to follow you. And if anybody needs a social, well, not social media management, but you never know. Maybe for the right
We're
price, you
getting there.
could get into.
You never know.
Oh, ladies. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Again, we can't appreciate your insight enough.
Anytime, guys. And congratulations to your kindergartner because that's a milestone.
I might go
So
cry. It's fine.
go get
Everything's
her.
fine. All right, ladies. Talk later.